The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 228.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today, we actually have a returning guest, Jack Daly. He was back in episode, I just had it pulled up, I believe it was like 94. I mentioned it in the actual episode. But such an incredibly important topic. I mean, some people hate to talk about sales, but Jack comes at it at a lot of different approaches. He talks about the full. We always talk about the soup to nuts, the sales management, the culture. So he's not just talking about one portion of it. And one interview was just not enough. So we had to have him come back on, take a deeper dive into portions of that last interview that we had with him. So one, if you haven't heard that, go back and check that out. But also this interview is value bomb after value bomb. They just don't stop. And I don't know how he has the energy. Well, he runs marathons, so maybe that's why. But the energy, the mental clarity that Jack has is unbelievable. I might be, from what you say, I might be half his age, and I envy his ability to keep these things in his mind and be able to articulate them so clearly. So I can't talk about him well enough. So let's just bring him on. Welcome back, Jack, and thank you for joining us once again on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Wade, I am truly excited about being here today. No question about it.
Excellent. So for those that missed the first episode that we did, which was actually TEL, or the Entrepreneur's Library, episode 96, where we covered your book, Hyper Sales Growth. For those that missed that, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Sure. So, serial entrepreneur, started selling at the age of 7, built my first company when I was 12 years old. And by 13, I had 5 employees and they were doing all the work and I kept 70% of the money. And that's when I realized I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I grew up. I went to school and got formally educated in understanding how the numbers work, because one of the failings that entrepreneurs make is they're good at bringing business in and developing business, but they're not as good with the number side. So I wanted my businesses to be profitable. I then went on a journey that included taking a blank sheet of paper 6 different times and sketching out a business plan, and built 6 companies into national firms, 2 of which I sold to Wall Street. And if there's a common thread running through them, it's this: very, very fast growing on the top and bottom line. And then about 20 years ago, I was tired of doing what I was doing. I had it with employees and doing all the things that are necessary to have a successful company with your team. And so I was financially capable of early retirement. So I did that, but I'm not a retiring guy. I'm a crazy guy with all my activities. And I got into the speaking business 20 years ago and fell in love with it, helping salespeople, sales managers, business owners, and entrepreneurs scale their business and their income. So that's where I'm at today.
So Jack, one of the first things that I'd like to do this time around is start off with a story, because people absolutely love that. So when you tell us, you breeze right past us, but about that first company at the age of 12, can you take us back to that time? And let's start off this interview with a story of maybe the business and hiring you first and just that time period.
Yeah, it's a great opening. So it was a newspaper route, and I took it over from a kid that had it before me. It was 32 customers, and after a couple days, what I learned after he passed the baton to me is that he lived in the 32nd house that we stopped at. And there were houses all over the place. And I asked him who delivered the paper to those people. And he shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't even know if they get the paper, which was a big thing for me. It just said, hey, this newspaper route can be really grown. And I think this kid just got satisfied with the money he was making off of 32 customers. I don't know. Maybe his parents said he had to have a newspaper route or something. All I wanted to do was go out and knock on doors and sign people up. I had a blast, Wade, and I ended up in a single year taking those 32 customers to 275. Now, if you think about you're 12 to 13 years old and you have 275 customers to deliver a paper to in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area after school in the cold and dark and wet and snow and ice, there was no fun in that. And it didn't allow me any more time to do what I really liked doing, which was signing new customers up, selling them. And so you had to be 12 years old to have a newspaper route. So I convinced 5 kids that were 11 years old to do on-the-job training. And I split the route up amongst these 5 kids. And I told them at the end of the year, I'd give them a letter of recommendation. They'd get their own route. I split the money 50-50 that the company paid me. And then I guaranteed them their split. And there was no guarantee for me. I had to buy the papers whether the customer paid or not. So if the last 20% of the customers didn't pay, the kids would have gotten paid and the company would have gotten paid, but I would have made nothing. And so it was really critical that I did the collecting, which is the beauty of the business plan was, because I never agreed with the kids to split the tips. And that's really where all the money was in newspaper delivery anyway. So they did all the work and I kept 70% of the money. Well, let me just tell you one other feature. That year, I was named Newspaper Boy of the Year. And 2 months after being named Newspaper Boy of the Year, I called the company up and I said, hey, my name's Jack Daly, and I was named Newspaper Boy of the Year. And I took a newspaper out of 32 customers and turned it into 275 in a year. And you know what? Does anybody even know who I am? And they said, everybody here knows you. And I said, well, why wouldn't you call me and ask how you did that? And the guy on the phone starts laughing. He says, you know what? That's a great question. How did you do it? And I said, well, rather than tell you, I have a proposal for you. And my proposal is, give me 5 kids on a weekend, on any weekend, as many weekends as you want, for 4 hours, put them in a Volkswagen van, and we'll go out and knock on doors together, and I'll show them what I say, how I say, and why I say it. And for that, I'll charge you a flat fee of $100. Well, that was in 1962. And in 1962, 3 out of every 4 Saturdays, I was out showing kids how to sell and making $25 an hour. My father did not make $25 an hour in 62. And I was making 70% of the money on 275 papers that I never had to deliver again. That is just one awesome deal.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal story. And obviously, you talk in your book about sales management culture. Was there, obviously you already talked about sales and sales management. Did you know at even that young of an age that there was a necessity for sales culture? Did you build it, or was that at one point where it just kind of happened?
So I probably wouldn't even know what the word culture meant back then when I was 12 and 13. But I will tell you, Wade, that I did know something, and that was this, that if I could find a way for these kids to have fun while they were doing it, to learn why they were doing it, for me to show them a few things on how to go about doing certain aspects of the job, and to have contests amongst the 5 of them to see who would not miss a day of delivering their papers due to being sick or being distracted with life. And so I'd hold contests and give prizes. And I'm doing this at 13 years old. Today, I'm teaching companies that you want to create a culture where the employees actually look forward to going to work. And I think a big, big word in that is make it fun. Is it fun to work in your company? And we all as leaders should strive to make that happen.
Yeah. So even going back to, we talk about sales management, culture. Your book covers all 3 topics, but do you, when you're traveling, do you put more emphasis on one over the other?
You know what? It's another good question. It depends on the client. Some of my clients will hire me specifically to just teach their salespeople how to sell. And, hey, you know what, we've got the culture, or we got a culture and we'll deal with that. But we just want you to show these guys the systems and processes for sales success. Other companies engage me to teach their sales managers how to recruit, and train, and coach and build a sales force. Because if you want to grow your sales in most businesses, the way to do that is to grow your sales force in quantity and quality. So some clients ask me to do that. And then there are those special clients that say, hey, you know what? If we don't get the culture right, nothing else that you teach us is going to matter. And so teach us how to build this winning culture. And then, you know what, when we're done with that, we'll engage you to do some other things with us. So, it's all three. I have clients that say, hey, give us a smattering of all three. We'll spend a day together, do 2 hours on culture, do 2 hours on sales management, and do 4 hours on sales. That'll be an awesome day. So it really is driven by the client. I don't have a program or a workbook that I show up with that is stayed. That's the same. Every client has a unique semi-customized program delivered to them.
In that first interview that we did, you talked about creating a culture or that environment where people want to wake up in the morning and show up, that they're not dreading showing up to work like it seems like the majority of people do. So can you give us a couple of strategies to implement so we can create that kind of environment that you're talking about, where someone is just ready and charged to come to work?
Yeah. So why don't I do it this way? I'm gonna knock down 4 legs to a strong culture, and then I'll revisit all 4 with an example or 2. So the 4 legs to a strong culture is recognition systems. What systems do you have in place to ensure regular ongoing recognition? Not that it's the flavor of the month or the flavor of the quarter, but regular, consistent, ongoing recognition. People are starving for it, particularly on the sales side of the house. Secondly is communication systems. What are the systems that you have for regular, ongoing communication in your company? Third is personal and professional development processes. Why should I come to work in your company? And once there, why should I stay? What's in it for me, the employee? If we were to focus on that, you would see things light up in a big way in terms of employee engagement. And the fourth is empowerment processes, creating an environment where the people who work in our business actually take action as if they were the owner and don't wait for permission or someone to tell them what to do. So if I roll back and revisit each one of those recognition systems, I'll just give you a couple to start with. One of them is the power of a blank sheet of paper by a leader. To take a blank note card or a piece of paper and stop at somebody's desk when they're not there and write them a note that says, I appreciate the job you do. It's done consistently. We hear it from our inside and outside the company. And keep doing the great work that you're doing. I'm impressed as anybody could ever be impressed. And sign it and leave it there for them. Here's what I will tell you. Not only will that enhance their performance that day or that week, not even that month, it goes bigger. I'm going to suggest that note could change a person's performance for the rest of time. People actually keep those handwritten notes. So as something as simple as that, I had 2,600 salespeople that I had responsibility for in one of my companies. And what I said to myself was I would send out minimally 100 handwritten notes each month. And I would just find people that were doing great things and just mention it to them on a handwritten note. And it has way more power, Wade, than just jotting out somebody on a text or an email. That electronic stuff is great for immediacy, but if you want permanency in performance, handwritten notes, don't overlook them. So that would be an example of recognition systems. And the systems part was having somebody track whether I was keeping up with my 100 notes per month target. Communication systems. Here's just one of many examples that I give in the book. The daily huddle. We have clients now that are getting everybody in the company together for less than 15 minutes. Some of my clients, it's 8 minutes. Some of them, it's 11 minutes. They have a specific time of the day they start at 11:08 in the morning, and it's going to go to 11:20 drop dead time. And in 12 minutes, what's hot, what's not, how we doing, where are the fires, and boom, everybody goes back, and they feel engaged and feel like there's no surprises and we're on top of things. And if somebody deserves recognition, we pop it right there on the immediacy. So implementing daily huddle. And as I mentioned that, I would encourage people to look at a book that just came out in the last 6 months called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, where Vern takes you through, the reader through, how an effective daily huddle is done. When I talk about personal and professional development processes, I don't think I need to spend a lot of time with the listener on what that means. But what I can tell you is a company that has a great culture is Zappos. And Zappos, after being in business for just 10 years, Amazon bought them for $1.2 billion and bought them because of their culture. Well, what's interesting is that most of the employees there are just regular hourly wage employees. But let's assume that an hourly wage employee at Zappos starts at $10 an hour. They have the opportunity to double their salary and go to $20 an hour, but not immediately, in steps. And it's voluntary as to whether you take these online courses and training that's offered. And as you demonstrate your proficiency at it, then there is a increase in compensation that's tagged along with it. If you're comfortable not pursuing it, then that's your choice. But at least we have personal and professional development processes. I have a client in Charleston, South Carolina, that asks every employee what's on their dream or wish list beyond business, and then goes about and prints it out in the office for everybody to see, for all employees. And then that CEO, owner of the business, is working diligently to make those dreams or wishes come true. Personal and professional development examples. And then empowerment. Empowerment is where I am enabled to make a decision, right or wrong, on the spot with a customer when the need presents itself. And I was exhibiting that as an employee, as a union employee at 17 years old in a grocery store, where a customer was disenchanted with us because we didn't have fresh spinach. I went out of the store, rode 2 miles to a competitor, bought fresh spinach at my competitor, came back into the store and gave her spinach for free in recognition of being a loyal customer. Now, in some companies today, Wade, that employee would be fired because they didn't have the authority to do that. And if I had been fired that day, it would have been a great day because it would have told me this is not the right culture for me. But what happened in that company of 200 employees is at 18 years old, I was made assistant manager of the store while going to school at the same time. So those are the 4 legs of a strong culture with an example to each.
Yeah, that was huge. There was so much. I don't know how many notes we're going to get out of that portion alone. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to change directions just a little bit and focus on the salesperson for a second. And that's the main question I have. I heard someone ask this in a non-sales related question. I thought it was fantastic. But this is, what's the one sales related question salespeople should be asking you, but they aren't?
So I'm going to come back to that question. I want to handle one that is always asked of me, and it's asked by business owners and sales managers, and that is, what is the single most important characteristic of top performing salespeople? So let me handle that and then jump back to your question.
Perfect.
So the answer to the single most important ingredient to a successful top performing salesperson is 4 letters, and it's GRIT, grit. They get up earlier. They work later. They take on obstacles as if they're a personal challenge. They view the whole thing as a game to be won. There ain't no mountain high enough. There isn't enough no's in the world to stop them. And they will do whatever they need to do to be the victor. It is grit. I was in London just a month ago on business. And as I was running around the city, I'm a major marathon runner. As I run these cities, I ran by this incredible statue of Winston Churchill. And I did a little YouTube video talking about this grit, because as I showed the video with Winston Churchill in the background and me standing in front of them, that individual stopped and won World War II against the Germans, and there was no logical way that you could explain how Great Britain and the UK could have been successful with or without our help in World War II, being underfunded, undermanned, undermoneyed in every way. But Winston Churchill never, ever, never quit. His grit was the differential and changed the world for the rest of time for the better. So that's my answer to the what's the successful ingredient. The question that you asked, which I love, which is what is the question that I'm not being asked by salespeople, is this one. What are the systems and processes that will enable me to be a top performing salesperson? And the reason that question is not asked is because the majority of people that come into the sales role think that the position is one of personal magnetism and that it is something that they're born with, and that each of the top salespeople, quote unquote, has their own style. The reality is that, and I used to be running around the United States talking about this in my company of 2,600 salespeople all the time. There aren't 2,600 best ways to sell this product or service. So figure out the best way and have systems and processes that we follow consistently across the board in the organization. One of the things that we found in studying top 10% salespeople is they are canned. And what I mean by that is they say the same thing the same way each time they encounter a certain situation. The beauty of them is they don't sound canned. It sounds like it's the very first time they've ever said it. So why not sit down and approach your business as if it were a sports team? Pick high school, college, or pros. There isn't a sports coach out there that would think about putting their players on the court, ice, or field without a playbook and without preparation and practice. And yet, salespeople are being thrown out into the marketplace with a 3-part program of here's your cards, here's your territory, and then a big kiss, good luck, baby, and go for it. And so then we wonder 3 months later why they're not being successful. Well, that we as leaders need to provide them with the proven systems and processes that will enhance their probability of being successful. But on to the error of the salespeople, the problem with salespeople is that you give them the systems and processes, and there's a big pushback because they would prefer to be mavericks, to do their own thing, to not be held accountable. And you hear things like, well, don't you trust me? And crazy stuff like that. It's not that I don't trust you. I just have a fiduciary responsibility to you and my customer for you to follow best practices. So the question again that should be asked is, what are the proven systems and processes to enable me to be more successful as a salesperson?
And is that a question they should be asking their sales manager? I mean, for the salespeople that are listening right now, is this something they should be going straight to their sales manager and asking them that question?
I think that that's one place you can ask it, Wade, but I'll also put this warning out there that too often the sales managers in most companies were the top salespeople previous to that and were quote unquote promoted into the position without the qualifications to be a capable sales manager. So if they were to ask the person, I'm not sure that they would get the right answer. So what I think you have to do is I think that you should go to a variety of different places for that answer. You should go to your sales manager or sales leader, but I think you should also go and hang with the top 1 or 2 or 3 people in your sales organization that are consistently producing better numbers. One of the things that I do in my professional life is I get invited to speak at the President's Club or the Chairman's Club, these environments where we honor and treat the top 10 percenters of the company, and we take them away to Hawaii and the Caribbean and cruises in Mexico for vacation with their significant other and all that. Well, when I go back repetitively to the same clients, one of the things we've witnessed is 90% of the people are the same every year. So obviously they're doing things different and better than the rest of the workforce, and they have the same product, the same competitor, the same economy, the same price. So find out what those people are doing. So I would go to the top people in my company. I would go to the top people in my industry, even if they're with a competitor. Get your ego out of the way. Go to your manager. And then I think you need to seek professional guidance. So whether it's my website at jackdaly.net, where we've got a massive amount of video and audio and books, Hyper Sales Growth came out a year ago, and on the day it was published, it was the #1 best-selling business book in 7 countries on Amazon. The book is filled with processes and systems that if you follow them, we have people that were making $75,000 a year in sales that 2 years later, following our processes, are making $300,000 and $400,000 a year. These stories are not unusual if you pick up the processes and make them a part of your ongoing practice.
That's excellent. This next question goes along right with what you were discussing all throughout that answer. And really what I'm asking is, from your previous interview, you said the manager's job is not necessarily to grow sales, but to grow salespeople. And so kind of a short question, but how? How does a good manager do that? What are some of the strategies they can implement?
So let's do this. That there are 3 types of calls that a sales manager should be making in the field with their salespeople. There's a joint call where they equally participate in the call. There's a training call where the sales manager actually demonstrates and handles the call 100% on their own, and then has a debrief afterwards, and they debrief about what went right and wrong and why they did certain things. And the third example of calls in the field with a salesperson is my favorite, which is the coaching call, which is where the salesperson does the call and the sales manager is silent, which is really difficult. If you were to take those 3, I would tell you that the minimum criteria for a sales manager should be a minimum of 4 hours per salesperson each month doing that. Now, let me put that into some context. If you had responsibility for 10 salespeople, I just ate up 40 hours of your month on just joint training and coaching calls. The second thing that I would tell you that as a sales manager to help your salespeople be better at what they do is something that I call role practice. And notice I did not call it role play. And role practice is where we take 3 salespeople and we have them wear 3 different hats. They wear a prospect hat, they wear a salesperson hat, and they wear an observer hat. And we let them wear the hat, and we do a debrief after the call, and then we change hats, and we do a debrief after the call, and then we change hats, and we do a debrief after the call. 3 cycles typically takes me somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 minutes to an hour. And at the end of that hour, no matter where we've gone in the world, at the end of the hour, the common thing we hear is, I don't know what the other threesomes were like, but the third time we did it, we were way better than the first. Well, let me tell you something about my old company, one of my old companies. We spent 3 hours a week for every salesperson just doing role practice. And so second thing would be role practice. The first thing would be in the field with your salespeople. And then I'm going to give you one more, and that is building what we call a success guide. And in the book, we go through great detail. But the essence of the success guide is there's hardly anything that goes on a sales call that you couldn't anticipate before you arrive. And as a result, there's no reason to not be better prepared. So a sales manager, for example, should work with their team and identify if they can find 10 objections, and very often we can't even get 10, yet most people think there are millions. If you were able to identify your top 10 objections and then come up with the best 10 responses, one response to each one of those 10 objections, and then have role practice where every salesperson on the team has the standard answer with confidence without going and making things up on the calls, I think those 3 initiatives alone would eat up a fair amount of a sales manager's time, but also would end up reflecting in significant improvement across the board with their sales team.
So, Jack, this whole entire interview from front to back has just been value bomb after value bomb. And that's exactly what the book is as well. And so as we kind of wind down, as we start to kind of run out of time here a little bit, what I'd like to know is what books, audios, conferences, etc., I guess methods of learning helped you form into this giant ball of sales knowledge, this sales expert that you are today?
So if we grabbed my Kindle, we'd find hundreds of books in there, and half of them are on sales, sales management, and entrepreneurialism. And I've been one for 50 years, and I'm still sucking that stuff down and learning. So lifelong learning is one of the messages I would give your listeners. And I already mentioned Scaling Up, which I think today in the marketplace is the #1 book that I would recommend people that are in business to read. It is the quintessential guidebook for running and building a successful company, and that's by Vern Harnish. A second thing that I would tell you is that I have been involved with mentoring peer groups most of my life. So I'll give you some names of them. Vistage, which used to be called Tech, TEC. It's about 19,000 business owners worldwide, but they meet in groups of 15 or less. And in every city, there's Vistage groups. They supply you with a chairperson who's a part of the Vistage organization. You have 15 people in your group that are none of them are from your industry, and you meet one full day every month and help each other with each other's businesses. And they bring in resources like myself that are subject matter experts. I also strongly recommend Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, which is over 10,000 members worldwide and meeting on a regular basis, and almost every city has an EO chapter. I recommend YPO, the Young Presidents Organization in Canada, CEO Global. And so these mentoring peering groups have a significant impact. I would tell any entrepreneur weighed on here that if they don't have a coach, they should find one, someone that will show them the way, help them with resources, and hold them accountable. The job of a business owner is a lonely one. Go find yourself somebody that you can lean on as a mentor coach. And my website is jackdaly.net. And my email address is jack@jackdaly.net. And if anyone listening to this is ever interested in being introduced to an unbelievable CEO coach team, I have that organization identified. And my clients that are taking on that are telling me it's one of the best things they've ever done. So the message to your question is this, Wade. There are resources all over us. They're all around us. And the question that I ask is this: why are so few people making use of them? And I'll wrap it up by telling you why I think it is. Because people and companies tend to underperform to their capabilities because we rush to the urgent at the expense of the important. And we're so urgently running around with our head chopped off, trying to make it through the day with fires all around us, that we don't take a breath and work on the things that are truly important, which is what we've actually been talking about for the last 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, Jack, so you mentioned a couple of different things. You've mentioned Vern's book now twice. And for those that are listening right now, if you want to listen to him take you through that book. I think it's about a 20-minute ordeal, and it's episode 124 of the Entrepreneur's Library, and he takes you through that book. And the other thing I wanted to mention, Jack, I just started. I'm a part of EO Fort Worth, and what a phenomenal. This was something that I was looking for and didn't think existed. The forum, the setting of getting around and almost having this board of directors that's helping you and you're helping them. And again, I'm only a couple months in, but I absolutely love it. It was one thing that I decided when I started was I was going to sell out to it, make sure I didn't miss, make sure that I gave it 100%. And it's been fantastic.
Let me give you some advice, since I've been banging around the EO network for about 20 years now. So the biggest thing that I can tell you, don't be afraid early to get involved at a leadership level. I just came back from the GLC, which is the General Leadership Council that was held in San Diego for worldwide. There were 1,200 people from chapters all over the world in San Diego, which by definition are the most hungry and capable entrepreneurs in the world. The energy, the intellect, and the idea sharing was monumental. So I applaud your getting involved at the local chapter level and getting in there. Now stay active and go for leadership positions. It'll just increase your learning curve by that much more.
That's excellent. I appreciate that, because that's something that, you're almost kind of timid when you first get in, and there are leadership roles available. And I'm definitely going to have to take a deeper dive into looking at what those are. And I already know that they will. They'll help me out just outside of the actual EO. But Jack, again, thank you so much for coming on. And same as last time, before we depart, you've done it a little bit when you mentioned your website, but can you give the listener more information on how they can get more details on you and also your book, Hyper Sales Growth?
Yeah, so our phone number is 888-298-6868. Our website is Jack, Jack, Daly, DALY.net. And then my personal email, which I handle myself, is jack@jackdaly.net. And in terms of the book, probably, it's available in audio, it's available in Kindle, it's available in the traditional ways on Amazon, or you can go right to our website and order it as well at jackdaly.net. It's been a thrill to have the book out. And quite frankly, we're neck deep in writing the follow-up companion piece, which is the sales playbook for hyper sales growth, which we anticipate being out before the end of the year. Everyone read the book and said, gosh, you're talking about the importance of the playbook. What does one look like? How do you build it? And I'm like, gosh, we really left that out. So similar to what Vern did in scaling up, his first book 13 years ago was Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. He then took scaling up and created the forms and the processes of how you implement. We're going to take what we taught in hyper sales growth, and in the sales playbook, we're going to provide the forms, the processes, and the systems that are reflective of what we taught in hyper sales growth.
Fantastic. Well, I will definitely be reaching out to you when that book is about to come out, because I would love to have you on for a third time to take us through that book. And Jack, again, thank you so much for coming on, taking an even deeper dive into this book, and what an incredible amount of value. If you're an entrepreneur, I can't believe how much value you just got out of one quick, 40-minute audio.
Hey, I just had a blast being on here with you. And if we can make a difference with just one individual, be they a salesperson or a business owner, you just made my day.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you want more information on Jack, any of the books that he talked about in this interview, again, he gave so much of himself and so much information within it. Check out the show notes at the elpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.